Okay, in this video I'm going to take a look at the winols file comparison system that's built into winols. I'm going to compare this SAYAT Layon file, which is one I've used on many occasions before, with a virtually identical SAYAT Layon file that I've got open here. So I've just opened two files more or less at random, but I've done it deliberately to keep them fairly similar. You can see they've got slightly different software numbers. There's that one there and this one here, so they don't match. So we wouldn't expect the files to match exactly, but we would expect them to be fairly similar. Now, before we start, it's always a good idea to get things so that they look similar. So in other words, whatever number of columns I've got here, I'm going to just press M a few times and make sure I've got a similar number of columns here. So I'm going to look at those and say, yep, they're a reasonably good match. And I'm going to go to 2D view. Let's have a look if we can get a similar area, because it makes sense to line these up vaguely by eye first before we do anything. That's the torque limit map on that one, and that's the torque limit map on that one, so that gets us roughly in the same area. And then what I'm going to do is, there's the comparison. We can get through it to it up here, but I'm just going to go, and it's nice and simple here. Looks like, I always think of it looks like two doors side by side. Obviously they're two maps, but they're so close to each other that it's and small, it's hard to make out. But we'll click there. It's going to ask us if we'd like to connect two maps. Now they're two files. Now they're the only files we've got open, so yeah, we'll connect those two. Now we can just click OK, or we take a gamble that it will do it all right, or we can ask it to look for whatever offset there might be between the two files and see if it can connect the files together. Now if we've got them more or less lined up like we have here, there is a fairly good chance that winols will do a pretty good job of automatically connecting them. So what we'll do is we'll click there. Now you can see, look, no areas similar to the one around the cursor were found. So in other words, it's saying that it can't automatically connect the two together. So I say, oh well, okay then, thank you. Well, we'll cancel that for a minute, and then let's see if we can find two other areas that might help us. Let's pick that one there, and I'll pick that one there. Now what I'll do is I'll go through the same thing again. I will assume that those two are the same map, so I'll go back to there. Do I want to compare that one with that one? Well, yes I do. Automatic. Now it's found a connection, it thinks. So, well, thank you very much. I'll accept that as my connection. I'll click OK. And now you'll see that we've gained an awful lot of colour. And that's because whenever the two do not compare favourably, in other words, where they're not the same, we get red and blue text. Red is increased values and blue is decreased values. And obviously, if they're increased on this map, they're red. So in the same position down here, they'll be blue, because these are now less than those. So in effect, whatever's red up here will be blue here, and whatever's red here will be blue there. So they're the exact opposite of each other. Like looking in a mirror, I suppose. Now if I move these along, now you can see they move together as if they're both the same thing. So whatever I do with one happens with the other, and the reason for that is this. It says there, connect. They are connected. If you look, you will see that they look vaguely blurred, and the reason they look vaguely blurred, and I'll just get rid of the grey highlight, is because it has managed, winols has managed to compare that map and that map exactly. And they are absolutely spot on. So there is no blurring here at all. Cannot make out a red or a blue line. All I've got is a black line. So winols is telling me that this map and this map are identical. But as soon as I move to the data that's at the side here, it's blurred, and the reason it's blurred, or it is to me, I can see like double vision. I've got a blue and a red line. They're virtually identical, but they're not quite identical. Now this is because they probably are identical, but they are out of alignment. Now when you change views, whatever you do, don't fiddle with this tick here. So whenever you want to change views, make sure the connect button is ticked, because if you don't, you will get yourself into a muddle. So what I want to do now is I check, right, there is a tick. I will just click text, and now it's gone to text view, and you can see that map are identical. But look at the information that's in the area surrounding them. It doesn't match up. That value and that value match, and that value and that value match, but after that the whole thing becomes a bit of a mess. Now that doesn't matter, because this is where you use winols connection ability and your own eyes, because you say to yourself, right, I'll just disconnect. There's the connect button, so I'll just disconnect, and then you look and you say to yourself, why don't they match? Well, there's a 13 and an 8, 13 and an 8. This has got a repeat of these two values. This one hasn't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the 13, and then I'm going to press Control and the arrow key, and I'm going to move this one across. Now it very often does what it's just done. It's jumped down a line, so I've now got to turn the mouse button and shift it back up one line. Now before I do anything else, I'm going to go over and reconnect. It's a good idea to, whenever you make a change, go back and reconnect. That way you won't get yourself in a muddle. Right, now what has happened? Well, you can see that this is black and it's all turned black over here. And so the two now match up. The two original maps that we started with, that one and that one, now don't match, because they're shifted out of alignment. Even though they're the same map, they're identical, they now don't match because they're the same, but they're shifted out of alignment. And we know how much they're shifted out of alignment. We shifted them out of alignment by that address and that address, so they've been shifted by exactly 2 addresses. Now I'm going to stop there and come back to this in the next video.